You guys smell that? It smells like Centoya Brown, maybe. This is coming to us from the Washington Post, which is a trash fire of a outlet. And the way you know that is because it is opening freaking line. The headline. He was sexually abusing underage girls. Then police said one of them killed him. Now, that is alleged. He was allegedly sexually abusing underage girls, first and foremost. Without a conviction, you can't sit there and make it and put it out there as a statement as a statement of fact, like you did in this headline. But okay, whatevs. Let's get into this. Now, Chrystul Kizer, who was 16 when she met Randy Volar, is accused of murdering her alleged sex trafficker. Really? She faces life in prison. And once again, it reminds me a lot of Centoya Brown. Let's just get into the article, really. This is written by Jessica Contreras out of Kenosha, Wisconsin. Metal cuffs strained against her ankles as she shuffled down the courthouse hallway. She passed her mother, who had grown used to seeing her teen daughter in a jail uniform. She passed the activist, who saw her as a victim of child sex trafficking. She's 16. Like, okay, so here's the thing. Once you leave after your age of 12, you become a teenager, which is no longer a child, which is that stage in which you should be preparing for adulthood. All right. They keep tossing out child sex trafficking and all this and the like. When that's rare, that's really not the case. I don't want to say rarely. It's really not the case, particularly here. She entered the courtroom where she was facing life in prison on charges of murdering her alleged sex trafficker. Really? The court calls 18CFB643, said the judge at this November hearing. State of Wisconsin versus Chrystul Kizer. Chrystul looked up at him, then down at her hands. She sat between the public defenders assigned to her when she couldn't afford her own lawyer. Beside them was the district attorney, the lead prosecutor for Kenosha County, a lakefront community about 160,000 people between Milwaukee and Chicago. Both sides agreed to certain facts about what had brought them here. When Chrystul was 16, she met a 33-year-old man named Randy Volar. Volar sexually abused Chrystul multiple times. How? I'll get into it in a moment. He filmed it. She wasn't the only one. In February 2018, police arrested Volar on charges of including child sexual assault, but then they released him without bail. I wonder why. I really wonder why. See, you keep calling these teenagers who by the time they get to 14, 15, 16, 17, they're in teenage mode where, I know everything. I know how the world works. And a lot of them have gone out to prostituting themselves. That's just the way that's really like a reality of the scenario. But every time you think of the age, you'll attribute it to, somebody of a more innocent type upbringing and lifestyle and environment, when unfortunately it just doesn't seem as if this is where these people came from. He remained free until Chrystul, then 17, went to his house one night in June and allegedly shot him in the head twice. She lit his body on fire, police said, and then fled in his car. This is where I have to take issue with the whole sex trafficking thing, because sex traffickers don't those who are sexually trafficked are, at least from my knowledge, completely locked away and shuffled from space to space to be the plaything of, rich men and the like. This doesn't really seem like sex trafficking when she, had the options of going and seeing him as well as going and murdering him. A few days later, she confessed. District Attorney Michael Gravely, whose office knew about the evidence against Volar but waited to prosecute him, charged Chrystul with arson and first-degree intentional homicide, an offense that carries a mandatory life sentence in Wisconsin. Gravely said he believes Chrystul's crime was premeditated. The evidence, he argues, shows she planned to murder Volar so she could steal his BMW. Chrystul, now 19, maintained she was defending herself. When you went to his house, once again, this just reeks of Cyntoia Brown. Speaking publicly from jail for the first time, she said that when she told Volar she didn't want to have sex that night, he pinned her to the floor. Okay, so why'd you go over there? Right? Like, I mean, and once again, it's like, oh, she told him she didn't want to have sex that night. So thusly, she was conceived. I mean, yeah, she's 16 and all the laws involving consent. Can a 16-year-old give consent? That whole spiel. But the deal is that, like, yo, he was smashing before. So I didn't intentionally try to do this, she said. There's Mr. Volar. Okay. Seems like the type of dude have to pay for it. And Crystal's actually not unattractive. She's a pretty good looking chick. Crazy as all hell. You see that wig on her head. Beware of the wig, fellas. Beware of the wig. Her case comes at a time when police and prosecutors across the country are reevaluating how victims of sex trafficking should be treated. How is she a victim of sex trafficking, though? Like, if we want to be blunt, she was a prostitute, not a victim of sex trafficking. If anything, she was self-trafficking. This year, Tennessee released Cyntoia Brown. Dang it. Whose story went viral in the midst of the Me Too movement. She went to prison at age 4 killing a man who purchased her for sex. No, purchased sex from her. Oh my goodness, the way they play with words in these articles. And served 15 years for killing a man who purchased her for sex. Who purchased sex from her. Alright, stop. That is nonsense. Brown's story, along with the downfall of financier Jeffrey Epstein and singer R. Kelly, reveal what most child sex trafficking actually looks like in America. Vulnerable kids. Oh, yo, she's 16. Stop it. Not kidnapped and held captive, not chained and smuggled across borders, but groomed by someone they trust and manipulated into believing they are the ones to blame for the abuse. Oh, where are their parents? Miss Kaiser, where's your dad? Where's your mom and dad? Like they said that the mom had gotten accustomed to seeing her there, but where's her father? Like, miss me with and trying to change this narrative from prostitutes trying to rob their johns to sex trafficking victims becoming champions and carrying out justice, getting their own justice. Miss me with it. Under federal law, all children who are brought or sold for sex are trafficking victims. Well, that's federal law. Regardless of the circumstances, 30 states and the district have stopped charging minors with prostitutions. Well, maybe they should. Maybe this is a part of the decay of, our society and our civilization, Western civilization. You should charge the minor with prostitution, particularly if you're not, 8 or 9, if you're of the age of between 13 and 19, you are a teenager, not a child. You should have, honestly, your parents should have did a better job during those first 12 years. But beyond that, it is on you to put yourself in the best position so you can have the best life possible that you can make for yourself. But sitting here trying to say, oh yes, all children who are bought and sold for sex are trafficking victims. Yeah, sorry, federal law, you got that one wrong. I'm sorry. If you sold yourself for sex, particularly at that age, 16, 17, 18, if you sold yourself for sex, you had an inclination. You knew what you were doing. You were not an 8-year-old. You are not a 10-year-old or a 7-year-old in this situation. You are someone who should have enough cognitive function to be able to recognize the situation that you're in and the situation that you placed yourself in. But, that would involve accountability. Most states also have a law that gives sex trafficking victims an affirmative defense. If they can prove at trial they committed a crime because they were being trafficked, they can be acquitted of certain charges against them. And here's where it gets weird, right? Because she went to his house. And she clearly had sex with him several times when I would have you. But now she's this great victim. Come on, man. Wisconsin is one of those states, and Chrystul wanted to use that law to defend her actions. Despite prosecutors' certainty that her crime was premeditated, her lawyer argues she still has a complete defense to the charges. But the affirmative defense law has never been used in homicide or any other violent crime. Not in Wisconsin, and as far as advocates know, not anywhere else. At this hearing, the judge was going to decide whether it could be. With handcuffs on her wrist, Crystal pulled at the rosary around her. No, cause I found my religion now. Oh, Lord, please help me get through this. Behind her, the courtroom was filled with her supporters and members of Volar's family. Your Honor, the lawyer began, and Crystal listened closely as the men debated what she deserved. Just after 5 a.m. on the morning of June 5th, 2008, a woman looked out the window of her Kenosha home and spotted flames on the roof of the tiny tan ranch house on the corner. She punched 911 into her phone. Fire, she told the dispatcher. The house is burning. Do you know if anyone is in the house, the dispatcher asked. Within 2 minutes, Kenosha police arrived to find the answer. Inside, a badly charred body lay slumped on the ground. There were 2 gunshot wounds in the head. Dispatcher said that earlier that year, the house was involved in a call about a runaway child. Officers didn't yet know the details of that case, but it did give them a name for the homeowner, Randall Philip Volar III, who went by Randy. Police combed the area for evidence. Alcohol bottles on the floor, a pizza box in the fridge, multiple hotel room keys, credit card records showed that the night before he paid for an Uber from Milwaukee to his home. The Uber driver told police he had given the ride to a short black girl named Crystal. So he got her an Uber. Ubered out. Neighbors reported that there was usually a BMW in Volar's driveway. The car was found abandoned in Milwaukee. A receipt inside led police to a Family Dollar store where security footage revealed that 4 teens had driven the BMW. One of them said he had a sister named Chrystul Kizer. Police found her Facebook page filled with photos of a slender girl who wore long, colorful wigs. Beware the wigs, gentlemen. On the night of the fire, she posted a selfie at 3:10 a.m. Behind her were curtains detectives recognized from Volar's house. The caption, "My mugshot." 3 days later, Crystal live streamed on Facebook. She talked about giving her brother a BMW. She showed off a gun. She told her 20-year-old boyfriend, Delane Nelson, "I don't want to shoot anybody else." The next morning, police drove a battering ram into Nelson's front door. They found Crystal inside. A shower cap on her head, zip ties were placed around her wrist as she was escorted into a squad car. Delane, why you even messing around with it, bruh? Why you even messing around with it? And apparently, was this when she was 16, 17? So why isn't Mr. Nelson in prison, huh? Her bail was set at $1 million. As they investigated Crystal, detectives were gathering information about Volar. He lived alone in a cramped 360 square foot, 1-bedroom house. He graduated from high school in 2001 and described himself as self-employed. He was 5'8" and about 200 pounds. His autopsy showed he had been born with missing fingers and toes, and a right leg shorter than the left. His parents divorced in 2009, and 3 years later, Volar wore a suit with a red rose bonniere to be the best man for his father, Randall P. Volar Jr., when he remarried at a golf resort. But most of what the detectives needed to know was already sitting in a police file. The runaway report, mentioned by dispatchers, was actually something much more serious, a sex crimes investigation that had been underway for months. It began with another 911 call, this one just before 1 a.m. on February 12, 2018. According to police reports obtained by the Washington Post, a 15-year-old girl called from Volar's house, told dispatchers that a man had given her drugs, and now he was going to kill her. Then she hung up. Officers found her wandering the streets, wearing only a bra under an unzipped jacket. Her pupils were dilated. She said she'd taken LSD. The girl eventually told police she met Volar the year before when he responded to an ad on Backpage.com. That's a big part of the reason why I've been reading this long, because these are prostitutes. They keep calling them, oh yeah, it's the sex trafficking victim. Federal law, that's sex trafficking victim. These are prostitutes. The site was one of the country's largest prostitution marketplaces until it was shut down for involvement in human trafficking last year. The girl said Volar paid her $250 for sex the first time they met, when she was 14, and then $100 each time after that. Wow, so, that you are a terrible negotiator, young lady. She told police he knew how old she was, because when she suggested he find women his own age, he elaborated on why he preferred bodies of young girls like her. In 2017, the girl ran away from home and moved in with Volar. Okay. And where are like, here's the problem: when you rely on the government to replace parents, this is what you end up with: just a whole bunch of nonsensical manipulation on everybody's end. Everybody's trying to manipulate everybody else, man. And it's ridiculous. But honestly, I think this video's gone on quite a bit long enough. I'm pretty sure Mr. Volar has done some awful things. But here's the problem, Miss Kaiser. That doesn't give you the right to kill him. And as far as you, Washington Post, the fact that he's white has absolutely nothing to do with this. All right, like she crazy as hell. You can kind of see it in the eyes. Why the cat was a little bit warmer. I've talked about this on several occasions. But the deal is that she was paid for her services, and that's it. And yeah, I'm not really taking into account the federal law guidelines because they are written by people who have no idea what street life is even like. So to them, oh, they hear the term, 15, 16. Oh, that's a baby. That's a child. We have to protect it. Whereas, if you're intimately familiar with the outlaw lifestyle, such as I am, you know that the criminals come in all ages, sizes, shapes, and everything. So seriously, Mr. Volar, you shouldn't be dead. You really shouldn't be dead. But Miss Kaiser, you shouldn't be using this as a defense because you knew damn well what you were doing when you walked into his home. So with that being said, we're going to bring this one to an end. All the internet stuff. If you like to toss it a like, dislike, go ahead, do that too. Nobody's scared of you. Sub if you enjoy my fantastic voice and want to give videos like this every single day. Share because sharing is caring. And YouTube, if you like, aren't the biggest fans of your boy over here. Bang the bell for notifications like you just heard. Bang the bell for notifications. And speak. Let me know, what do you think in the comments? Like, I'm sorry, just 15, like, first and foremost, when they sat there and said, oh yeah, he's an alleged sexual abuser, he was not convicted. So thusly, it's really irresponsible for the Washington Post to use that as the headline. Then when you get into the story, she was a prostitute. She sex trafficked herself. And yes, I understand the federal law guidelines and the like, but reality is a thing too. And in reality, this young lady needs to go away for a really long time. But you may disagree, and that's what I have a comment section for. So let me know what you think in the comments. Until the next one.